Welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey story time. This first story is an affidavit from 1896. It's of a Lakota Sioux man. His name was Jack, and he was an outfitter and a guide. Interesting to me, aside from the account, is the way language was formed back then and how much differently we speak today. Hope you enjoy. A few weeks back, my friend Jake McCoy and I were in witness to the following of accounts. We were well spent after an uncommon day of awful heat cutting timber. Our days in the woods were usually of a cool and foggy nature, with the heat rarely becoming to our discomfort. After our supper, Jake and I were of a mind to sit by the creek. With the next day being Sunday, we were able to enjoy an evening of our own doings. We were smoking and having coffee when we smelled something like a dead animal left to rot in the heat. I remember once coming upon a shot bear that his hunter could not trail, and it had laid and rotted for 4 days in my opinion. It gave an awful stench, which would give many a disagreeable stomach. This scent was in similarity to that. We saw nothing unexpected, but could hear a rustling in the brush just across the creek. Being August, the creek was not more than 4 or 5 goodly strides from this bank across. A man could start to a run and jump fully across if he were determined of doing so. We saw what looked like a large man coming through the trees, and Jake stood up and asked what in creation it was. As I had just been looking toward the sun, my eyes did not have a clear view of it. I rubbed my eyes to have a look and was not in knowledge of what I saw. It appeared to be a bear at first, but we had not seen any bears in this area, and it walked as a man would on 2 legs. If it was a man, he was covered with dark hair and long like the mane of a horse, and it was dark brown in color. Jake yelled out, "Who goes there?" But this man-beast did not make a response. It stopped in its tracks and looked at us from a distance of about 70 paces. We stood, but were froze as we wondered of the type of creature we were in witness to. After just a moment or two, it turned and walked back up the hill in great long strides and with unexpected ease of swiftness. We heard it climb up the hill, and then all was silent. We noticed it walk for 20 or so paces, all of them upright. It had arms like a man's, but of much bigger size and greater length than a man's. It must have been of great strength, as we determined it to be greater in height than 7 feet. We said nothing to our supervisors, as loafing and insubordination would get you off and looking for employment in other parts. Too many men wanted too little work. So saying anything that would attract attention to yourself in a manner not deemed proper was not born of a good idea. However, an Indian named Joe, who frequented our camp to vend his wares, had told of the mountain giant uncommon to these woods. I explained what we saw, and he said his people often saw these giants. However, he said that most would see them in late night or darkness. The giants did not care to be seen and were quiet and careful to be hidden. Joe said that he could find tracks along the creeks and the rivers of a morning. I swear the events written here is the truth and happened with us being of sound mind and in sobriety. 19th of August, 1896. Wow, I thought that was a really great account. It was nothing too scary or terrifying. But again, like I said, the language and the way they formed language back then, 1896, I thought that would be interesting and hope you enjoyed that. This next story is written as it was told to me by a woman named Jessica G. I call it Bigfoot Lullaby, and it's from Sarasota, Florida. About 8 years ago, my husband and I lived in a double-wide trailer on 10 acres his parents gave us. It was just right for us, set up on a hill with a 2-acre pond, a barn, and a 9-row garden I spent most of my days in. My husband worked offshore on a 14 days on and 14 days off schedule. On his days on, my mother would stay a few nights to help out. We have 2 children, both girls, and the baby was a newborn. Having Mom there really took a lot off me, that and really not liking all that time alone with just me and the kids in the woods. I'd get a creepy feeling at night sometimes, almost like the feeling of being watched. Every evening around 7:30, I'd take the baby to her room, put her in her crib, and sing her to sleep with a few lullabies. Sometimes while I was singing, I could hear what sounded like moaning and cooing coming from outside. I'd stop singing to look, but having the light on in the bedroom made it where I couldn't see that well out the window, and I never saw anything. That didn't happen often, but it was often enough for me to tell my mother. I could tell about where it was coming from. There was a stand of small pine trees about 30 feet from the house in the back between the barn and the trailer, and it sounded like it was coming from there. My mother and I decided one day we wanted to catch whoever or whatever was doing it. I told her that when I put the baby down, she could go to the back bathroom and look out. There was a street light my husband put up by the barn, and it backlit those pines enough that she should be able to see if anything is there while I'm singing. It was about a week, but the time finally came. Mom was staying over, and it was time to put the baby down. Mom went to the bathroom with the light off and set up to see if she could spot the source of the noise. I started singing, and sure enough, the whining moan and cooing began. I just kept singing, thinking if Mom spots whatever it is, she'll come in and tell me. The baby finally went to sleep, and I came out of the room to see if Mom saw anything. When I got there, she was still sitting in the dark. I turned on the light, and she shot out of there in a panic. "Jessica," she pleaded, "you've got to get those kids and get out of here." I said, "Mom, what's wrong? What did you see?" She couldn't answer right away. She just said, "Please get the girls and let's go." I said no more. If Mom was this upset, I knew something was wrong. I got the baby, and she got our 3-year-old, and out the door we went. We got the baby situated and started down the road. My mother was shaking badly. We drove about a mile toward town when she began to tell me something that chills me to the bone to this day. She said, "When you started singing, I could hear the cooing sound right away, and it did sound like it was coming from the stand of pines. I squinted and scoured the area from one side to the other, but couldn't see anything. I could hear it clearly, but saw nothing. That is, not till it moved." Between the bedroom window where the baby and I were and the back bathroom window where Mom was watching was a 15-foot tall Leyland cypress tree we planted about 3 years before. She saw the movement out of the corner of her eye, and there behind the tree from the baby and I, standing just 4 feet away from her, was a huge, hair-covered, man-like creature with its back to her. She said it was tall as the eave of the trailer, about 9 feet. She said I was instantly stricken with fear, but somehow I got the courage to move and stepped back toward the toilet, sat down, and waited till I came to get her. She said she didn't want to make a sound and clue that thing into where she was. She described it as being all black and covered with hair, with a few bare spots on its back and shoulders. She said it looked like a man, but much bigger. We hadn't heard much of Bigfoot, but 2 plus 2 told us that's what it had to be. We drove to Mom's house to stay the night. We went back the next day with my cousin Joel, he has guns, to get clothes and baby things so we could stay with Mom till John made it in from his hitch. Joel walked around to the back to investigate the area and found where this creature had been standing and watching us. This had gone on for over a month. There was a big spot on the ground where the grass had been pressed into the dirt, and a massive half handprint on the eave where it looked like this creature rested its hand, wrapped around the corner of the eave, fingers on the roof, palm on the top front edge. When my husband got in, I told him what happened, and he wasn't too surprised. He admitted that he thought he saw a large dark figure walking the tree line one evening, but wasn't sure what it was. Plus, he didn't want to scare me, so he didn't say anything. We talked about it for a while and decided the creature was coming there every evening to listen to me sing to the baby, and what I heard was it singing with me. Once that thought entered my head, and John reassured me that if it wanted me and the babies, it would have gotten us by now. I felt better about going back to the house to stay. Mom still came and stayed while John was away at work till the baby got older. I never heard the cooing sound again, but I did get some blinds and made John cut down that cypress tree. All I can say is wow. Could you imagine being watched that closely by one of these creatures? I'd guess it probably happens a lot more than we dare to think about. Well, I hope you enjoyed those as much as I did. If you did, give it a like and share it. And once again, thank you so much for listening.